Today we're looking into some really serious allegations coming out of the Sean Diddy Combs trial.
Yeah, we're using the live YouTube transcript from Cassie Ventura's testimony on May 13th, 2025.
And our goal here isn't just to, read the transcript back.
Exactly. We want to really pull out the most significant claims, those key moments, and the evidence presented.
So you get a clear understanding of what actually happened in court based on this source.
It's about extracting the core information, the knowledge, for you.
Right. And this is direct from the transcript shared live, not secondhand stuff. Okay, so let's get into it. It starts pretty standard, establishing facts.
Cassie states her age, 38, professional musician, entertainer.
And the relationship with Combs lasted 10 years, she said.
Then the government asks this question, seems simple. Did you get no arguments?
But her answer, well, it changes the tone immediately, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
She confirms arguments happen, but critically, she says they often led to physical violence. She uses the word dragging.
Which immediately signals alleged abuse, right from the start.
Sets a very troubling tone.
And it escalates quickly. She claims he stomped on her head while she was down.
Yeah. And when asked how often this kind of violence occurred?
Her answer was just stark. Too frequently, resulting in black eyes, bruises.
So the prosecution seems to be building this foundation early on, showing a potential pattern of violence.
Before getting into the more detailed stuff later.
Exactly.
Then the focus shifts to this hotel video. It's surveillance footage.
From the Intercontinental Hotel lobby in L.A.
Yes, in L.A. And the context she gives is that it happened after something she called a freak-off.
Okay, so we need clarity there. How did she define freak-off in her testimony?
Well, she was quite explicit about it.
She defined it as hiring an escort and basically setting up a sexual encounter.
Right. Hiring an escort, arranging it. And the government asked about her reaction the first time Combs asked her to do this.
And she described feeling, what, confused? Nervous?
Yeah, confused, nervous, but also, wanting to make him happy.
So she agreed initially.
Initially, yes. But then she testified it became much more frequent, and she didn't want that.
Which brings up that whole difficult issue of consent, especially over time.
Exactly. Even if there was agreement at first.
The escalation, her saying she didn't want it later.
Yeah.
It raises big questions about coercion, power dynamics. Could she even say no?
Well, that feeling of not being able to say no, that became a really key part of her testimony.
She said she was afraid of the consequences.
Yeah, she literally said, I didn't know what no could turn into, implying it would make him angry.
And she also mentioned fear because of alleged blackmail material.
Yes. That adds another layer, doesn't it? Beyond just physical dominance.
Definitely. Suggests a deeper level of control. And she mentioned giving laptops to the government as evidence.
She did. Which indicates she believes there's proof of these threats, this attempt to maintain power over her.
Right. And this connects back to something else she mentioned, doesn't it? A threat about releasing sex tapes.
It does. So this blackmail claim isn't, out of the blue in her testimony.
Okay. So back to that hotel video.
Right. She says she was trying to leave and alleges Combs physically dragged her back.
And the government's take on that was pretty strong.
They suggested it could potentially be seen as kidnapping.
Wow. But Combs' team had a different story.
Yeah, his lawyer said he just wanted his cell phone back from her.
Okay, so two very different narratives for the same video footage.
And notably, the testimony specifically shot down rumors that she stole money. It was about the phone, according to her account.
So the jury has this visual evidence, but also these conflicting explanations. That video is clearly going to be crucial.
Absolutely. They'll have to weigh it all. Now, shifting slightly, the prosecution showed her a GXB drive.
Okay, a GXB drive.
Yeah.
For people not familiar, what is that?
It's basically a type of external hard drive, significant because it can hold a lot of data.
Right, so potentially emails, texts, documents.
Yeah.
Things that could back up her claims or establish a timeline.
Exactly. She identified it as having communication documents related to Combs.
And there were photos on it, too.
Yes, she reviewed photos. One she identified was herself from 2004 with someone named Carrie Morgan.
So this visual material, along with the digital records, it helps build out the bigger picture, the context.
Right. And then there was this detail about her record deal, signed with Bad Boy in 2006.
A 10-album deal, which is massive.
Huge. But she testified no albums were released after late 2006.
And she felt controlled by that deal, like it limited her music.
That's what she stated. It highlights another way control might have been exerted, this time professionally.
Yeah, an unfulfilled deal like that can completely stall an artist's career.
The testimony also brought in Kim Porter, identified in a photo as Combs' ex, mother of his children.
Okay.
And Cassie recalled her 21st birthday in Vegas with Carrie Morgan. Also an alleged incident at the VMAs, a kiss in the bathroom with Combs. Then she went back to her hotel. Mentioned visiting him at the Trump Hotel while his place was being renovated. These seem like smaller details, but
But they add texture, right?
Yeah.
They help build the narrative of their relationship over time. The places, the people, how things evolved. Adds context to the bigger allegations.
yeah, that makes sense. She also said she was trying to come up with a concept for her music, but Combs called all the shots.
And the age difference came up again.
Yes, 17 years. She talked about how she initially felt when invited to hotel rooms.
Nervous excitement, thinking it was about music.
Right. But then she said something quite disturbing, that Combs introduced her to oral sex and she didn't understand it.
Okay, the age gap plus that allegation, that raises serious red flags. Potential grooming, exploiting that power imbalance.
The story then moves to Miami visits with Carrie Morgan again and Dallas Austin.
And allegations of sexual intercourse.
Yes, and that Combs gave her something called Blue Dolphin XX on a boat.
Right. And she also mentioned accidentally taking ecstasy before in Gatorade.
She did. She initially thought their relationship was monogamous, she said.
But it wasn't public, and he was still linked to Kim Porter publicly.
Exactly. Though at that stage, she described the relationship as, quote, "we had fun."
So a mix of alleged substance use, sex, and this discrepancy in how the relationship was perceived versus reality.
Then she described his lifestyle assistance everywhere, constant travel. A photo was shown, them at a strip club in New York around Halloween 2007 or 2008.
Okay.
She talked about his mood swings, day-to-day changes, anger, sometimes just zoning out.
And how that affected her.
Greatly, she said. She repeated the claim of being hit in the face.
And psychological abuse, too?
Yes, saying he told her to watch my mouth, change my face. And again, she stressed the money-stealing rumors were false. The hotel video was about the phone.
And the record deal came up again. The lack of releases.
Yes, reinforcing that theme of control over her career and revisiting the earlier points, introducing her to oral sex young, allegedly putting ecstasy in her drink without her knowing.
So this section really kind of pulls together those core allegations: physical, psychological, professional abuse, and the non-consensual substance use claims.
Yeah, it felt like a consolidation point in the testimony.
Several other people were mentioned, too.
Right, Carrie Morgan identified as a model, the sheer number of assistants Combs had.
And the YouTube commentator watching brought up age of consent.
Yes, in relation to some claims. The testimony also briefly touched on other lawsuits, other potential victims.
Allegations from those other cases, like Combs enjoying watching her with black men.
Yes, and claims she searched online for prostitutes, maybe for him, male prostitutes present during freak-offs, masquerade masks.
It's important to stress those are allegations from other contexts brought up briefly.
Definitely not her direct testimony here. There was also mention of industry rumors about Combs, maybe involving other celebrities and other industry figures facing allegations.
And that complex situation with Quincy Brown, Combs, and LB came up too. Allegations of brainwashing, financial influence.
Right. Again, context mentioned, but not the core of her testimony.
Absolutely crucial to make that distinction. These mentions might build a broader picture for the prosecution, but they aren't Cassie's sworn account of her own experience.
Okay, let's talk living arrangements. Her LA place on Comstock Avenue was mentioned.
And Combs' place on South Mapleton, with him using a golf cart between them.
Yeah. Apparently he paid her rent in LA.
Except for a time she had her own place in Studio City.
Right, which she paid for herself, trying to have some control, she said, and he apparently accepted that.
Interesting. And the music she wrote.
Hundreds of songs, she testified, mostly unreleased. 9 albums still on that deal, unreleased.
And no payment for them.
No payment. She described the freak-offs basically becoming like a job.
Consuming all her time.
Yeah, leaving no room for anything else. So the longest one lasted 4 days, happened for significant periods.
Yeah.
It paints a picture of her life just being dominated.
Absolutely. Underscores that theme of control again living, finances or lack thereof from music, and her actual time, her autonomy. The volume of unreleased music is staggering.
Her former manager at Bad Boy, James Cruz, was mentioned. He left in 2018.
And Cassie recalled him saying something about managing her.
With one hand tied behind his back, because he had to run everything by Combs first.
That seems like potential corroboration from someone else about the control over her career.
Yeah. She did say she made some money hosting parties, but Combs had to approve those.
Okay.
And she testified about comments he allegedly made about her appearance.
Like looking Mexican with certain hair or preferring specific nail polish?
Yes, white French tips. And she alleged her laptop and phone were taken away as punishment sometimes.
Wow. That's a very granular level of alleged control and manipulation. Confiscating personal belongings, dictating appearance.
It paints a picture of a very controlling environment, extending to really personal things.
Mm-hmm.
The testimony then got into extremely graphic territory. Prostitution, drugs, specific acts.
This is where it gets very difficult.
Very. She said she assumed his staff brought cash for escorts, though an objection to that specific assumption was sustained by the judge.
Meaning it might not count as direct evidence, her assumption.
Right. But she said she had daily contact with his staff, identified people like Christina K.K. Kern and D-Rock in photos.
Wow.
She testifies she knew the layout of all his homes, knew where safes were.
And what did she see in these safes?
Cash, jewelry, cameras, videotapes, and guns. In New York, L.A., Miami, Alpine, New Jersey.
Guns, okay.
She recalled an incident involving Combs and Suge Knight during a freak-off in L.A., said D-Rock told Combs drove there, she was scared, told him don't do nothing stupid.
Wow. And she alleged being given a gun herself.
Yes, while high on shrooms, told to put it in her bag before going to a club. Security and driver were present, she said.
That's incredibly concerning.
And another time, seeing Combs and others get dressed, grab guns, leave in an SUV for 30-40 minutes.
Left her there wondering what was happening.
Seems like it. She also said Combs mentioned voyeurism early on, like within the first 6 months to a year.
Okay. And she testified she was 22 when she first agreed to a freak-off.
Yes, 22. Motivated, she said, by wanting to make him happy. Happened first at his L.A. home.
And described the first escort.
Paid to dance and have intercourse with her, she said. Didn't know his name.
Drugs were involved before these sessions.
Ecstasy and alcohol, she testified. She described feeling high, detached, dirty, confused. But Combs seemed happy.
And she felt she couldn't say no because of fear.
Fear of his anger, she said, and also because he didn't share that emotional side of himself.
These freak-offs allegedly became weekly for years.
Weekly for a consistent number of years, she testified. Last ones in 2017, 2018.
And she never slept during them because of the drugs.
Right. Ecstasy, Molly, that white stuff, she mentioned. Said she couldn't possibly recall all of them.
And she wanted to stop.
Clearly stated she wanted to stop. Said Combs sometimes used ecstasy too with the escorts.
What other drugs did she mention using?
Special K, GHB, shrooms, which caused hallucinations.
There was an email mentioned about drugs.
Yes, an exchange where she wrote about taking the thing, meaning drugs, before he arrived. His reply apparently confirmed he'd taken his I'm flying, meaning high.
So documented communication about coordinating drug use before these encounters.
Seems so. She described getting sick from ecstasy MDMA, vomiting, but Combs allegedly told her to continue.
Just pushed her to keep going despite being physically ill.
That's the allegation. She described GHB making her feel drunk and tipsy, and the white stuff made her heart race.
And how does she feel during sex on these drugs?
Emotionless. A way to get through it, she said, because she hated it.
Horrific. Then she described leaving one early.
Yes, at the Century City Intercontinental, had a premiere to go to, said Combs hit her between sessions.
Hit her, and this led to the incident in the video.
That's what she testified. Getting to the elevator, him throwing her down, grabbing her neck, her hoodie. It aligns with the events described surrounding the hotel video.
That level of detail is just deeply disturbing.
It is. And it continued with even more specific, harrowing details about the sexual acts.
Okay, this is extremely difficult content.
It is. She alleged escorts urinated on her, sometimes two men, one she thought was found via Craigslist or Backpage in New York.
And she claimed Combs directed her to respond to ads on those sites.
Yes, and that she never reached out to escorts on her own.
She defined a safe escort as, not a cop, discreet.
Right. She testified she realized these activities weren't legal.
An objection was sustained there, though.
Yes, to her statement about legality. She alleged Combs wanted her to put an escort's ejaculate on his nipples.
Which she did, against her will.
Complied. Didn't want to, she testified. Alleged he watched sessions via FaceTime.
Watched remotely.
And she deleted recordings from her devices, calling them disgusting. Asked Combs to delete his response was allegedly, I don't know.
So recordings existed, potentially on his devices.
That's the implication. Another email was shown, her writing, I really need to feck. She explained this meant she wanted to be with him.
Okay. But later messages showed reluctance.
Yes, her writing, "I'm so predictable," implying she always gives in. And Combs seemingly aware of it. She said she'd backpedal to avoid his anger, potential violence.
A clear pattern of trying to manage his reactions, even when reluctant.
She described getting outfits for sessions from places like Pleasure Chest, getting piercings with him.
And the locations for these freak-offs...
Miami, New York, her homes, except Studio City, Atlanta, Ibiza, all over.
Names were used, like code names.
Jackie Starr for an escort, Frank Black for herself, she testified.
And supplies were involved.
Astroglide, Johnson's baby oil combs, allegedly said she needed to be glistening with it condoms, brought by security and assistants.
So staff were involved in facilitating this.
That's the allegation. The Intercontinental in New York apparently had the biggest bill for room damage after one of these sessions.
Wow. Redecorated the whole room.
That was the claim. She came back to the urination allegation, saying it was obvious she didn't want that happening.
2 men urinating on her while she's on the ground.
Yes. Said escorts were initially sourced from Craigslist. The judge called a break after this part.
Understandably, it's incredibly graphic.
There was also mention of a motion to quash a subpoena for someone named Clayton Howard, allegedly a sex worker.
Okay.
And one final allegation mention from a contact, not her direct testimony. Combs allegedly making her get in a pool full of Astroglide with her clothes on.
Just the layers of alleged degradation are shocking.
Truly shocking. So let's try to summarize this deep dive as we wrap up. The core of Cassie Ventura's testimony, as presented in this transcript.
It involves repeated allegations of severe physical violence, yeah.
Definitely. And pervasive control, professionally, personally, financially.
And then these incredibly disturbing details about the freak-offs, the escorts, the extensive drug use described as both coercive and enabling.
And the serious claims of coercion, manipulation, and outright blackmail.
And you have her direct testimony converging with that hotel video evidence.
Plus the potential for corroboration from others mentioned, like James Cruz or maybe Clayton Howard.
It paints a deeply, deeply concerning picture of the alleged behavior, a pattern of abuse and exploitation that is just very serious.
Absolutely. And when you hear the breadth and depth of allegations like these, it really forces you to think, doesn't it?
About power dynamics, exploitation, not just in entertainment, but everywhere.
Yeah. What does this reveal? And what responsibility do we have, as people who consume media, to be aware of the potential realities behind public figures?
It's a very sobering thought to end on.
It is, but maybe a vital one to keep considering.